That tree standing behind you right now, no matter what species it is currently costing you nothing and providing you with nothing in return. However, the Amish realized over a century ago that a single tree could completely eliminate a fuel bill, not just reduce it, eliminate it entirely. The reason you have never heard this story is not by accident. When I first stepped onto a working farm near Millersburg, Ohio, I spent 10 minutes searching for a fuel tank. There was no tank. Instead, there was a tree, a single press, and a diesel engine running cleanly with no smoke, no odor, and no monthly bill attached to it. That tree is known as Moringa oleifera. Before this video concludes, I am going to show you something found in a World Health Organization field report from 2007, a document that almost no one outside of international relief organizations has ever read. It proves this tree does something even more valuable than providing fuel, something you can use this weekend in any home, in any state, regardless of how old your house is. Stay with me until the end, because that specific part changes the entire calculation. What you are about to learn is why that tree vanished from every American farm between 1920 and 1930, and why one man with a pipeline spent 50 years ensuring you never learned its name. Right now, the price of your fuel is being decided by people in rooms you will never enter, regarding events you had no part in. It has always been this way. The Amish figured out a long time ago that the only answer to that problem is to stop needing their fuel. Here's the part that most people get wrong. When people talk about alternative energy, they picture solar panels, wind turbines, expensive equipment, complicated permits, and contractors who never show up on time. That is not what this is. What the Amish figured out was not technology, it was biology. They identified a tree that produces oil, real oil, cold-pressed, requiring no refining, that runs a diesel engine without a single modification. The seeds contain between 38 and 40% oil by weight. The oil is 70% oleic acid, which is the same composition as olive oil. It burns clean, it does not smoke, and it does not freeze. You simply press the seeds, pour the oil into the tank, and the engine runs. One mature tree produces 3 to 5 liters of oil every year. 100 trees produce enough oil to power a small farm indefinitely. No drilling, no pipeline, no refinery, and no monthly bill. The Amish have been running machinery on pressed vegetable oil in Lancaster County and Holmes County for generations, not as an experiment, but as a standard practice that never stopped working. The tree grows 15 feet in the first year and produces seeds in year 1. Those seeds stay viable for 5 years without refrigeration. It survives months without water, requires 0 fertilizer and 0 pesticides. It lives 20 years from a single planting, and while it is alive, it fixes nitrogen in the soil, improving the ground for every crop planted near it. There is no maintenance cost, no supply chain, and no invoice. Now you are probably asking why you have never heard of this before, and this is where the history matters. In 1900 at the Paris World Exhibition, Rudolf Diesel stood in front of a crowd and demonstrated his engine running on peanut oil, not petroleum, vegetable oil. He wrote in his journal that vegetable oils may one day become as important as petroleum and petroleum products. He believed the engine he built would free farmers from dependence on centralized fuel sources. That was his vision. He published it and said it publicly. 8 years later, Henry Ford introduced the Model T. That car was designed from the beginning to run on gasoline or ethanol. Ford said publicly, and this is a direct quote from 1908, that there is fuel in every bit of vegetable matter that can be fermented. Ford saw a future where every American farmer grew their own fuel. That future was entirely possible. The technology existed, the knowledge existed, and the infrastructure could have been built. But John D. Rockefeller had already started building something else. By 1880, Rockefeller controlled 90% of oil refining in the United States through Standard Oil. His strategy was not to build a better product. His strategy was to price competitors out of existence. He sold kerosene below cost until every competitor collapsed, then raised prices once they were gone. He was not selling fuel, he was selling dependency, and once the dependency was established, he protected it. By 1925, oil industry lobbying had ensured that only gasoline was sold at filling stations across America. States passed laws restricting ethanol sales. The infrastructure for vegetable oil fuels never got built, not because it did not work, but because someone had already paid to make sure it would never compete. Rudolf Diesel died in 1913. He fell from a ship crossing the English Channel. The official verdict was suicide. His engine went on to power the world. His original vision, vegetable oil, farmer independence, no petroleum required, was quietly buried. But here is what they could not bury. The Amish never joined the system. Their religious principles prevented them from becoming dependent on centralized supply chains. They kept pressing oil from seeds. They kept planting trees. They kept the knowledge alive, not as a protest or a political statement, but simply because it worked and they never needed anyone's permission to use it. Now, if you already own a house and you are thinking this only applies to people building from scratch, stay with me because this next part is specifically for you. Moringa grows outdoors year-round in USDA hardiness zones 9 through 11. That means Florida, Texas, California, Arizona, and Hawaii. If you live there, you can plant this tree in your yard this spring and have seeds by fall. No greenhouse, no special equipment, and no permit is required to plant a tree on your own land. But what about everyone in the northern states? This is the part the Amish in northern Ohio figured out that most people miss. In colder climates, moringa still grows as a container plant or an annual. It will still produce seeds in a single season before the first frost. You grow it in a large pot, bring it in before winter, and it comes back. But more importantly, the Amish in northern Ohio do not rely solely on moringa. They use a combination of pressed sunflower oil and hemp seed oil for small machinery and diesel equipment. Both grow in cold climates, both press cleanly, and both run in diesel engines without modification. Sunflower seeds are 45 to 50% oil by weight. Hemp seeds run between 25 and 35%. Neither requires a refinery. Neither requires anything more than a manual or mechanical cold press, which costs less than $100 and lasts a lifetime. You do not need to wait for warm weather. You do not need to move. You do not need a large piece of land. You need seeds, a press, and the decision to start. The machinery in your barn or garage right now can run on oil you grew yourself. The Amish have been proving that for 100 years, and they are still proving it today. The Rockefeller Foundation, between 1943 and 1963, funded agricultural programs specifically designed to make American farming dependent on petroleum. Tractors replaced horses, which required fuel. Synthetic fertilizers replaced crop rotation, and those fertilizers were made from natural gas. Pesticides replaced companion planting, and those pesticides were made from petroleum byproducts. The entire agricultural system was rewired layer by layer over 20 years to run on a product that someone else controlled. By the time most American farmers realized what had happened, the alternative infrastructure was gone. The knowledge was fading. The trees had been cut down. The Amish did not cut down their trees. Now, I want to give you the part I promised at the beginning, the detail found in a WHO field report that almost never made mainstream news. This is the secret the mainstream guys never cover, and it changes how you think about this tree entirely. In 2005, researchers at the University of Leicester published a study confirming something that people in 14 countries had already been doing for generations. Crushed moringa seeds purify contaminated water. The proteins in the seed bind to E. coli, salmonella, and cholera bacteria, causing them to clump together and sink to the bottom of the container. In controlled testing, the bacteria reduction was between 90 and 99% in 30 minutes. One seed treats 1 liter of water. The World Health Organization documented this in a 2007 field report covering use across Africa, Asia, and Central America. Relief organizations were using moringa seeds in disaster zones because the seeds worked faster and more reliably than chemical treatments in field conditions. And they could be grown locally, stored without refrigeration, and used by anyone with no training or equipment. One mature moringa tree produces enough seeds to purify water for a family for an entire year. The same tree that runs your small diesel engine, the same tree that costs nothing to maintain, the same tree that improves your soil, the same tree the Amish have been growing since Mennonite missionaries brought it back from India and Africa in the early 1900s and documented its uses in their own farming records. A tree that fuels, feeds, and purifies growing in your yard, costing nothing after the first planting. This knowledge existed. It was not hidden in a vault. It was written in mission reports and WHO documents and university studies that nobody sent to your mailbox. The system Rockefeller built in 1880 did not need to ban this tree. It only needed to make sure you never thought to plant one. That system is still running, but now you know. The fuel bill was never mandatory. It was designed, and the tree that proves that has been growing in plain sight the entire time. If you are the kind of person who believes that real knowledge has been quietly pushed aside to protect someone else's profit, you already know what to do next. This is not a coincidence, and it is not ancient folklore. It is documented, verified, and sitting in reports that were never meant to reach you. I want to know one thing from you. When you heard that Rudolf Diesel's original engine ran on peanut oil, not petroleum, in 1900, what went through your mind? Leave that answer in the comments below. I read every one of them, and I want to know if this changed how you see that first bill you ever paid at a gas station. If this is the kind of knowledge you want more of, real, sourced, practical, and recovered from the places where it has been quietly sitting for 100 years, then subscribe. Because the next video is going to show you something the Amish in Lancaster County have been doing with a building material that was federally defunded in 1937. And the reason it was defunded will make this one feel like a warm-up. If this story changed the way you look at the plants in your own backyard, then subscribe and like this channel. We are unearthing the history they tried to bury. It is time to plant the seeds of the future. The next hidden treasure will be revealed very soon.